today we got to play Terraforming Mars. This game, I think, is a favorite of everybody.
Well, it's not on his top 10, but it's on both of ours.
Yeah, it's not on my top 10, but it's a great game.
Yeah. And even the mysterious person behind the camera also, I think, is one of their favorites.
Yes. Caleb, that's one of me asks to play a lot.
Yeah.
So,
to be fair, it is a good game.
We've got two boards set up here because we wanted to show and compare and contrast what you get in the game versus what we play with, because what comes in the game, the pieces as we get into the quality you're going to see, it's not great.
Yeah, so let's do a quick synopsis of this game. This is a deck building, card playing actually. It's more card playing. There is a drafting component to it as well, and you're basically trying to terraforming Mars through several different ratings: temperature, oxygen levels, and water placement. You can get other victory points through other different means, but mostly through card playing and city placement. But that's essentially the summary of the game. Looking into quality of pieces. So standard, what comes in, you have plastic cubes to differentiate money. Then you have plastic cubes for the actual player pieces. I actually really like these plastic cubes that come in because they're the see-through different colors. Now, I did have to upgrade and get purple.
Because.
We've actually spent a lot of money on the upgrades for this, so keep that in mind. And then the other thing is the player boards. Now, the player boards they did not have this pretty plastic. We actually had to buy this plastic to put over them to have the inlays in them. Standard, it is just a flat piece of paper and stuff gets lost, moved. It was chaotic.
Although the big box version is going to have built-in inlaid boards. So it's this was one of the big complaints about the game when it came out, because it's easy to bump the board and pieces would move, and then all of your stats as far as your production is on here.
I was going to say, of all the upgrades, makes, the 3D printed tiles are beautiful, but the inlay boards is the best.
It's a must.
Yeah, that one's a must if you're going to play this any long. And then, so with this, we're also going to talk about Colonies maybe a little bit, and Turmoil. So, which are both expansions. Oh, and Prelude Expansion.
So you skipped over the money because
I mentioned it, but you
mentioned the plastic cubes, but they have metal cubes for money and resource counting that are in 1s, 5s, and 10s, and these are really awful.
Well, they're not bad.
They don't. The edges peel.
The quality kind of stinks, but if it wasn't for that peeling part of it, they're fine. In my opinion.
We have actually replaced all of those with metal.
But metal's much better.
Yeah. And
tactilely speaking, this just doesn't have the satisfaction as the straight up metal ones.
It also doesn't cause your game to weigh 300 pounds, but this is the great. I will say this is the game we have spent the most upgrading out of all of our collection.
Well, and to be fair, it's probably the game that has gotten the most gameplay on.
As far as big game box games,
I
mean, we played lots of small party games.
So the other thing is in with that is you also, for the colonies, you have colony tiles. We again got upgrades for them to actually have the inlays as well, because again you had the knocking component that became an issue. So
you actually printed those.
Yeah, I printed
these. We had to buy. You
both
actually
those,
printed them.
Yes, my printer's not big enough for that, but we did buy I did make the inlays for them. And then, then you have cardboard tiles for what your buildings on the board are. Again, I think you could tell a little bit of difference in these. So we ended up printing these. I did. It's actually one of the reasons why I ended up getting a 3D printer, I think, first of all, was to start printing game pieces. And this is one of the reasons why. Just from the appearance on the board, just makes a huge difference. Again, functionality-wise, these are okay. It's not nearly as the player issue with like the boards are, but
when you're playing, it's an experience when you have that kind of presence as what's on the 3D versus this.
And honestly, I wonder what condition your board would be in with all those tiles, as much as we played this game since we got the 3D printed stuff. What condition
these are already worn, and we didn't even
would be like.
We've only played with them a few times before we decided to 3D print,
and they were already worn. So overall, card quality. Okay, so the cards is one of the biggest components in this game.
Yeah, this is actually about 1/10 of the deck. We just pulled out one stack, maybe a little more than that, but
There's a ton of cards.
Yeah, there are a ton of cards. These have a nice texture on the back. They're not bad cards, but we know you're going to sleeve them. You don't want to sleeve them because you're going to play this. If you like the game, you're going to play it a lot, and you're going to shuffle these a lot.
Yeah, so play it once, see if you like it.
You're going to shuffle a ton of these cards together.
Yeah, so this game has a lot of optional for upgrades, and if you like this game as much as we can, I highly recommend. So give it a score based on what comes in the box.
As far as what comes in the box, given the lack of functionality of the boards the way they come, the component quality of the cardboard is These are nice, but that's about the only. But these are typical now. I mean, in a lot of games.
But I mean, when it came out, I don't
No, these weren't typical. Yeah, this is actually what made them typical.
I would probably give it a 6 because it's slightly better than Catan as far as what you get in the box in the base game.
What do you think?
I would give it a little bit higher because even though I like the metal, I like the money cubes. I mean, granted, it does peel eventually, but initially they still look cool. They may not function as for long term, but they look good. So out of the box, I think it's 7.
I'm going to have to go with a 6 because there's a big issue with things shifting. Even with the tiles, with this, with everything, it just has shifting issues. And it can be a huge problem when you're playing a game, especially when placement is so important. And you have so much going on during the game, you can't remember whether you had 6 or 7, and that is very, very frustrating when you play that. So that's where I'm at. So moving on to theme. The theme, obviously, is you're trying to terraform Mars.
Is that why they called it that?
Yeah,
wow.
Who knew? So every card there's a lot of different cards and how you actually terraform Mars. I think
they all have unique art too. I mean, that's really nice.
A lot of work went into the cards.
Yes.
So
they're very, very, but they're still very functional. I mean, the thing is, the iconography on this is great. They have text to explain the iconography on every card,
and it's photorealistic. I mean, it looks like if this stuff existed at one point, and they took pictures of it. Yeah. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think they did a spot on for cards, and as well as even the cards, like the amount of creativity you had to have to figure out, all right, a protected valley, a neutralizate factory, nitrogen from Titan. Like all those things, they had to, for each card, there's a different thing that happened, and it makes sense within the theme. And I think they did spot on for that. And I also really do enjoy the theme. I like that building thing, so terraforming Mars is right up my alley.
You get right combos. There's a lot of engine building.
Yeah.
Which is probably why Randy likes it.
Well,
so
yeah,
much.
but that's more gameplay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the cards all fit together.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating that they put all the effort in the cards, and the cards are wonderful as far as that. But the board, every tile is exactly the same. You know, everything is the same. You know, it's water, greenery, or city, and they all look exactly
There are
the same.
a few specialty tiles.
You know, honestly,
not on the base game.
Yeah.
That's all you get. Those 3.
Honestly, I wouldn't have known without Miranda's 3D printing that the cities were actually different. Because the cards look different, but the tiles do not. So I would have never thought that they're actually printing actual different cities for the different cities, the specialty cities that are in the decks. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, eye-catching definitely.
For sure.
And you know, it's really hard to separate theme when I have these upgraded components, because if you think about just having this, you're going to score it a little bit lower compared to what this
and that's
is on
why
the board.
I've got both here so we can review
so you can see,
compare and contrast.
Honestly, with all the upgrades, theme for me is a 10. But if you remove all those upgrades, I feel like it's more of a 7, maybe an 8. An 8 probably because of how well they did on the cards.
Yeah, that's what I was actually thinking. It's probably an 8 because of the cards, because the cards are really done well. And the iconography in this is done well in general.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the upgrades, it's a 10. The only thing I will say about the upgrades that makes it challenging is trying to find them because when you put them in the box, you know, if we had a better storage mechanism that we could identify which pieces were what, it would be easier. But you know, every time it's like a hunt game. to find the tile you need to put on the
Yeah,
board.
it's almost gotten to be at the very beginning. I kind of set out all the specialty cities out because the standard cities and standard grass, that's fine. But
And I think with
all
the big
this-
box version, they did organize it, the different city pieces.
Yeah.
So that
So it will
it's
be
like trays.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they bring as far as the big box because when is that estimated to arrive?
They haven't given a date yet. I did back it, and so, but I think it's done. They're just now in production now, and with the Chinese New Year, it's going to extend it out. But it should definitely be in our hands by the end of this year.
Okay, and we might pull that out and do an unboxing or maybe a comparison
definitely
study.
an unboxing.
Yeah, so moving on to rules. It's been a long time since we've had to read the rules.
I've never read the rules.
I mean, given the fact that we played this so much, I mean, when we were first starting out, we had to refer back to them a few times. The rules were not too bad. There was a few things that seemed like they were quirky from my memory of it, but I haven't looked at them in a long time. So this one I'm going on my memory of it, so bear with me. But the rules were pretty complex. It's because it's a complex game. There's a lot going on. They've got a lot of pictures for the game board. They've got the setup. They actually go like 6 pages in before you get to the setup, and then the turn order, the actions. But honestly, the cards are self-explanatory, which is pretty nice. The board actions are the ones that we really need to understand a little bit more.
That's typically actually what we look up is if we use a different board than the standard board, trying to figure out which those. And I think that's honestly where it was.
But I mean, for being this complex of a game as this is, it's only a 15-page rule book. It's not that advanced.
Well, I wouldn't really say it's complex. Just the basic rules. The complexity comes with all the different cards. But
the strategy
cards are self-explanatory, and you can do different strategies. So that's where the complexity comes in. The basic gameplay is actually kind of simple.
Yeah.
If you actually think about it and break it down.
Yeah.
The complexity is the strategy and the different cards.
Yeah.
I would probably weight this game as probably a medium. I don't think it's even medium heavy. I think it's probably a medium, solid medium.
I agree. I think it's a solid medium.
Because I mean, if you look at it just from the action, if you look at the board, it looks busy. But if you think
not.
It's
really
not.
not. It's not that hard once you get down to it. And then once you add on the more expansions, it gets more and more to it. But it's still not.
Right.
It's the same
and
action
I think that's a point to say is that as you add expansion, the complexity goes up. For example, once you introduce Prelude, now if the Prelude expansions, those are pretty straightforward. That's just a little bit different at the beginning of the game. But then you add Colonies, and then you add Venus. And then you add Turmoil. All that adds to the complexity.
I don't think it does. I think it's the same point that Caleb made. It doesn't make it more complex. It's just more options. So it kind of makes it become overwhelming with all the different options.
Yeah.
But I don't think that makes it complex. It's just like, where do I go? What do I do? And so I think that when we get into gameplay, we can talk how they solve that because I think they did a really great job of solving that problem.
But I mean, it's got a section breaking out all the symbols in the game.
Yeah, the iconography is what
I don't
makes
think
the
this
game,
is a bad book
great.
at all. I'm going to give this an 8. I remember there's a few quirky rules that we had to go back and check on, but I don't remember it being that complex. And from looking at it, I'd say it's probably an 8 for a book.
Okay, cool. All right, so moving on to gameplay. Okay, so we typically play with 3 out of the 4 expansions. And we'll go into that. I think there needs to be talk about the expansions as well. So base game-wise, though, it's fairly straightforward. You get 10 cards that you decide. Out of those 10 cards, you choose which ones you're going to start out your deck with. You get your starting money with the beginning corporation. And then you take 2 actions, and that actions are buying cards or doing any of these standard projects that are available to you. And of course, over time, you increase the heat, increase the oxygen, and place water tiles to terraform Mars. Right? So the different expansions. So you have.
I finished the expansions with the base game itself. You said that you get the 10 card base hand, but in addition, there's a variance in the base game where you have additional corporations that you can choose from. That will vary.
That's Prelude.
No. There were base ones in the base game. Prelude added additional. But the base game came with corporations you could choose to, and you basically, once you played it once, you would want to. that give you varying starting abilities, and you then have to pay for those cards up front, whereas normally you just got them for free with the basic card.
And that's how the game solves that
Right.
where do I go mentality.
And it adds a drafting element, which is very important to the game, which is not in the basic. If you're just playing straight out of the box, the basic instructions. It's when you get to the variants that it adds in. You draft for the cards each time, which I think is critical to this game.
Yeah, I think that makes a big point.
I think a key thing about going back to the corporations, though, is that you don't have to pick the corporation. The last game I played, you get basically 2 corporations to select from. They both were horrible. I didn't know how I could possibly win, so I chose to do a generic corporation. And that takes out the card drafting part of it. You just get 10 cards. You don't have
at the initial
one, and you don't have to pay for them, so it's got kind of nice there. But then it was more complex on where do I go from there. Whereas the corporation you guys pick kind of gives you a direction where to go.
I will say, even though, so the thing, well, we have to kind of talk about Prelude to be able to go in some of that. So Prelude is, so they added more corporations for you to choose from. They also added starting resources. So, or cards that give you more, okay? This did shorten the game, though, because a lot of those things allowed you to increase more quickly. So it did shorten the time on the game, which I think is really good, and it may have needed it depending on who you are. But with that, when you choose your corporation, you have access to those resource tiles and your first 10 cards. So sometimes you can look and be like, okay, these match, these don't match. And I did that one time. Like I had the starting resources line up with the cards, and so therefore I ended up scrapping both of those corporations because those corporations didn't match my starting ability. So I like that aspect because you're almost setting yourself up like a corporation, like, okay, I'm going to take the best of my resources and run with it. So I do like that mechanic that Preludes really did add. And then moving on, they also...
I would argue of all the expansions, if you're going to only buy one expansion, Prelude
is the one. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. So moving on, next is Colonies. I think this is my second favorite expansion. So basically, you have different colonies that are randomly. So you get shuffle, you randomly pull them out. And you can opt to build colonies there, and you get resources every time someone travels to trade there. And so that's a big... I have fun doing that. And there's a lot of cool cards that came in with that I really do enjoy. And then the next one is Venus. Venus adds another board and another tracker that gives you victory terraforming points, which are different than victory points.
Right. But it doesn't speed the game up.
It doesn't speed the game up.
These tracks are in-game conditions. This is not.
Yes. But Venus, to me, is my next favorite. It adds in a ton of cards. It adds in these Venus cards that have a V on them. That adds a whole new dimension with clouds on them, so it's another thing to collect. And
but
they're very
Jupiter
powerful.
had clouds too.
But they're more powerful. No, the Jupiter did not. Venus added the clouds to the Jupiter.
Okay.
So Venus adds in a whole new dimension, and those clouds became almost another way of mechanism of winning. Because in the base game, the nice thing about this game is there's so many ways to play it. You don't have one strategy that's going to win every time.
No.
That's what I like about this game, and adding the clouds in it added a whole new path to victory. Not to mention the fact that you could build up, Venus itself. So I just think it added more to it to me than what Colonies did.
Well, no, because the Colonies add where everyone fights for that resource.
Yeah.
Because the Venus and the other ones, once you get the card, it's yours. There's not really any fighting over it. But those Colonies, everyone fights over it. Make sure we don't get the other person gets what they need.
And then you may get resources if someone else trades there.
So it's more of helping everyone get together more so than I'm just drawing my cards and I'm just corporation somewhere over here.
Yeah. It adds that player contact that maybe the rest of the game kind of doesn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Colonies is probably my second favorite. I really like being able to set up a colony and then other people go in there and I get free resources because they did it. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So,
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
To be honest, without just taking out one of these extras is kind of, I don't want to.
I agree. I think all of them are now required because we're so used to playing.
Except 4.
Well, right. We didn't talk.
Well, there's 2 more left. We
we-
still
we-
got the Elysium board.
Yeah.
It was Elysium and Hellas.
I thought that came in with the Venus.
No, it's a separate expansion. It's actually, that's probably the least essential board or expansion because all it is a completely separate board.
It has some variability to it.
But it gives you different.
It gives
ways
you different
to win,
milestones and awards in the game. But in essence, you could play with that, not without that entirely.
Right.
It's not going to affect your gameplay.
It adds a little spice, I think is what is the good
it's
way.
basically like a different map in Ticket to Ride.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the
Turmoil.
4th one.
Turmoil.
No, that's
Yeah.
5th or 6th.
Whatever. The last one that
The
came
last one
out
came out.
is I was super excited about coming out because I love Terraforming Mars so much. I was super excited. It came out, we played it, and I was not a fan.
I don't think a single one of us really.
Yeah, I mean, I like elements of it. The problem with it is it drew the game out. It slowed it down. And it was like, this game's already 3 hours long. You know, we don't need to slow it down. Now, I know a lot of people can play it shorter, but given the fact that 2 of us at least like to play cards versus Terraform actual Mars.
Listen, the only way to beat Randy at this game is to make sure it ends quickly. And that is typically, I'm the one that has to end up doing it. So it's like, how do I end this as quick as possible?
So the game, you know, it's like, I'm more worried about building an engine than I am about building up on Mars. So the game should be called Terraforming My Deck. Or Terraforming the, But as far as the turmoil, it just adds another phase to the game that stops the game, and then it's an administration phase that you basically have to do, and then you have to pay taxes, and your income goes down, and it's like everything about this just draws the game out, and it's like it was already going at a decent pace, and now you're going to slow it down, and we just did not like any of that aspect, and I think you guys didn't like the actual functionality. I liked the functionality. I just didn't like that fact that it was an administrative nightmare to try to keep up with it.
Yeah, so we immediately separated the cards back out and put it in the box, and we haven't played it since. So
I think we should play it at least a couple more times to really cement our opinion about it, because we only did it the one time. You know, and maybe if we play it multiple times, it might grow on us, because how many games... I know there's lots of games where I played the first time, I didn't like it. That I played a couple more times, and then it kind of grows on.
Why ruin is such a great thing? Like, this is
It
so good.
It might make it better.
So, let's give this a score, guys. We've kind of talked about all the components. So what's your guys' score? This is kind of hard because you've got base game and then you've got all the expansions. How do you?
I have one major criticism. I love the game, so I'm not take that out of it. Is downtime. There's a huge amount of downtime. When it's not my turn, I'm waiting for my turn to occur. And there's not a whole lot, other than the colonies. If someone goes to a colony, I might get a resource. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot, unless you're playing an attack card, which doesn't happen a lot, because we don't like those type of things. Except for Caleb, he's the big jerk when it comes to attack cards.
Randy's not afraid either.
But, I mean...
Randy's a traitor.
That's true.
That's
but
fine.
I'm just saying,
That's
for
fair.
the most part, you're waiting for your turn to come around, and that can take a while. So you're kind of, that's my only criticism. It's not huge, but it is a criticism.
Yeah, I do think there's a little bit of wait time, which is why I typically have crocheting or other side projects going on home play.
If I take that out, I think I would give this a 9. I really enjoy the game. You know, that downtime, it's a pain, but it's not that big of a deal. So it's a 9 for me.
Yeah, I gotta give this a 10 because
I know that.
I love every aspect of it. I'm fine with a little bit of wait time with how much enjoyment I get out of it. Let me phrase 10 with my upgrades. It's why
that's assumed.
because I mean, let's be honest, we have spent several $100s upgrading this to its full extent, and it's why, because I rate it so high because it is such enjoyable to play, and then also with the upgrades you get that tactile feel. This is everything I want to see in a game. It's beautiful. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard on this because of the fact that we have changed it so much. If I look at just the base game and what you get in the box, if you bought Terraforming Mars as is, I'm probably going to rate this more like maybe an 8.5.
Yeah,
if I look at just because of the components and everything, it's still a great game. It's just that there's things that it was missing. And once you add on the expansions, you add on all the upgrades to the components, it becomes a 10 to me. It's now, the way we play it is a 10. The downtime I actually need. I don't mind the downtime because of, I tend to take time on my turns.
And he's the reason
So
for the downtime.
I can plan out, I'm going to play these cards in this order when I'm playing my turn, and if I don't have that time, I'm going to screw up and play them in the wrong order.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So
we're
the fact
Yeah,
that each person gets 2 actions on their turn, and I've got 4 or 5 people at the table, so I have time by the time my turn comes back around, and I've locked in what I'm going to do, unless somebody's done something to screw it up. It gives me the chance to plan, so my turn doesn't take forever. The only frustration I have is the calling out. Whose turn is it? Whose turn is it? Because it happens invariably as soon as my turn starts. It's every time. It's like, I just got my turn.
Sometimes I think it's done on purpose.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm just thinking that maybe it annoys the heck out of somebody.
It's because Caleb tends to take a while on his turn, and he sits right before me.
He may be a bigger culprit than Randy is for.
I think so too. Me and Randy, because we're trying to build our engines, we have to play exactly right.
Yeah, where me and Robin are like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done until the very end. At the very end, we have to start being a little bit like, all right, I got to figure out exactly how I'm going to do this. But
then also Caleb always has 3,000 blue cards on the table that he can play.
Yeah, he's got 1,000.
Oh, something that we didn't talk about: table hog. Oh my goodness! You have to There's
a whole lot more than just this when you add in those cards.
Yeah, because there's 3 kinds of cards. We didn't go over the cards either. There's blue cards. These are action cards that will stay in play, and you're going to keep reusing them over and over and over again as additional actions or benefits.
So you have to lay them out.
So you have to keep them all spread out. The red cards are one-time use. You play those, you put them face down, they're out of the game.
That's Randy's.
Those are red cards.
Green are the ones I play.
Yeah.
Then there's green cards. These cards are important because the icons at the top are still useful, so you can collapse them, but they have to stay visible for the iconography.
So then, everyone has their own thing. So we end up playing.
We have side tables.
Yeah.
Everyone
has cards.
Everyone has their own sound table, and then sometimes you still run out of room, and then you're like, "We're out of room." Really, we should probably play this downstairs on the pool table, but even then, I'd be scared that we would run out of space when you had Colonies, Venus.
Oh no, you would just have to get up and walk around to the other end of the table and on the board. So
yeah. Anyway, this game is truly amazing. I think it is a must for.
There's a reason why this is an evergreen game. People love it and they keep coming back.
Yeah. And there's tournaments now. In fact, I'll be running one at Gen Con this year if we have it. The prize will be one of these beautiful 3D printed sets. Who knows? Maybe. We'll see. But, that's the fun thing. And I enjoy this game where I want to play in a tournament. I want to go against other people. And it's a blast to play. So,
and if you don't want to win the tournament or you don't think you have a shot, she sells them on her store, too.
Yeah, absolutely I do. So I sell all the upgrades that I personally made.
Needless plug.
So fantastic. Well, we enjoyed spending time with you today. We hope that you had fun too, talking about Terraforming Mars. Tell us what you thought about the game. What is your favorite expansion? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you'd like to hang out with us again. We appreciate you guys. Bye.
Bye.